Making any film is tough, but what about making one entirely alone? Today, I'm breaking down exactly how I pull this off in my latest short film, At Night I Can Fly. We'll talk about the shots that almost broke me. Camera's gonna have to be this side now, because I'm walking direct to it. Whoa, that's trippy as balls. What's happening there? Oh, you know what? That button doesn't work because I didn't put the cable on it. There's no way to do this with something. And why the film you see on screen looks different from the script that I started with. I'm Barry Fahey, and this is BlackRoad Studios. And this is how I made a movie entirely by myself. So, as part of my 12 shorts in 12 months project, my January short film challenge was to make a film entirely alone. This is the resulting film, At Night I Can Fly. I would ask, if you haven't checked out the film already, you should do that now, as without the context for the film, some of this may not make sense. Let's start at the beginning. When coming up with the concept for the film, I went through various ideas and also focused on the constraints that I would have when making a film alone. The biggest one that I was worried about was audio. Without a sound op that I trust, I couldn't really guarantee that I would get great audio on set, so I figured the best option would be to have most of the film narrated. This goes with some of the ideas that I had in that initial video about dealing with isolation. From there, I built out a narrative about someone who'd recently went through a divorce and wasn't coping well. The title for the film and the idea for the lucid dreaming drug was an idea I had quite a while ago, but didn't really flesh out the idea or write a script before. The original idea was a bit longer and had more character interaction. It was more that he was being bullied at work and then used the drug to gain confidence, but then also began to overuse the drug and it went too far the other direction and he became the aggressor. That idea was good, but without another character on screen to make the antagonist, the original idea wasn't going to work. So I wrote about something that was far more internal with a happier ending. So that seemed like a perfect adaptation of the original idea to fit within the limitations of this challenge. Okay guys, we're here, day one. This is going to be the behind the scenes of the shoot. I'm going to be setting up the first couple of shots upstairs in the bedroom. Let's get started and see what happens. Sweet, mirror, butt shot. So this is the bedroom scene. I'm going to try and shoot what I can here. I'm going to be going through the products that I'm using, the tools and equipment that I'm using to try and get the most cinematic look on my own that I can. For the behind the scenes, I'm filming on an Osmo Pocket 3. I'm using the DJI Mic 2 as both a transmitter and it's also recording 32-bit float. So that if I do yell or anything, it should be covered. Time to go get some gear and let's talk about it. So one of the first pieces of gear that I wanted to mention is this Orbi A400 from iFootage. It's a round base monopod essentially that keeps the kind of footprint of a light stand a lot smaller. Also going to pair it with the Shure 150X light, which is a bicolor light, so it's going to give me that nice warm light you can see behind me here, kind of emulating that early morning sun. So that should set up the main light. I have a second light I want to set up, but I'm going to set up camera next, so let's talk camera. I shot on the Red Komodo OG as it's small, lightweight, and I can use my Shure Nightwalker lenses that I know work really well with the gimbal that I have, which is the DJI RS2 Pro. To add motion, I use the iFootage Shark Nano 2 slider paired with the gimbal to build in some extra camera motion that made it look like there was more of a crew there than just myself. Setup times were a bit rough. Normally on set you have several processes happening in parallel, but on my own, the setup was a lot more linear. It was camera, then position, then lights, then blocking. Everything was set up, test, review, and adjust. And that was just repeated until I dialed in everything I wanted from the camera. And then I would try to get into character to deliver the performance. That was then reviewed and repeated as often as needed to get the shot. I'd also like to reiterate, I do not really consider myself an actor, but needs must. So we're here in Slow Roast in Lochray. This is going to be our coffee shop. The guys have been kind enough to let me film here all day, which has been really, really cool. They've kind of given me the front area here where the reception is to do most of my stuff, which is great. So I guess one of the things that people are probably curious about is how I've been doing focus and stuff like that. I have my monitor set up with focus peaking, wireless follow focus here that I am able to adjust. Then I can also stop and start record with the Red Control app on my phone, which is great. So it's just one of those things that makes a couple of things a little bit easier. I'd also like to touch on how difficult being alone on set was. I love collaboration and being able to bounce ideas off people or get a giggle when a line is flubbed or even a hug when you nail a complex shot or scene. That was weird. I actually got emotional there during that for some reason. I don't know why. That's not even the emotional scene. I don't know if I'll put that in. Yeah, weird. initial thoughts of doing everything by yourself is it's very difficult. Everything takes way longer. You second guess yourself a lot. I think having people on set you can run ideas by and give advice and stuff like that has always been a really integral part of how I work. I'm very collaborative. So not having people here that I can bounce ideas off and, you know, reassure me that I'm not making a stupid mistake and stuff like that is, I find it difficult from time to time. I'm definitely feeling it, to be honest. I still think I would have preferred an actor. It depends very visually on what comes across on camera. And being this side of camera and not having access to the other side is very intimidating and not what I'm used to. But hey, this is what the challenge is all about. Overcoming what limitations are there and still getting it done. Every short and everything that you make should be a step ahead or a step beyond what you did previously, and you should learn something from every short. Even the shorts that you don't like, even the shorts that you don't like being on set for, everything should be considered a learning experience, and you should find a way to learn something new from it. One of the things that I've learned, this camera slider combo, let's pack up and give my mum back her house. Normally this is a big moment on set, but there's no one else here, but that's a wrap. You'd be surprised how important that great shot, or that was great, or I love that little smile at the end really is. That little bit of reassurance that you're going the right way. To be honest, I miss that at every single stage. Coming up with the original idea, the script, locations, on set, and even in post. I'm not saying that I needed constant validation. In fact, being challenged on an idea is just as important in the creative process. But anyone who's been on set with me knows that I like to keep the positivity on set and get excited with every achievement and sharing in those moments with others. I just miss that. So, on to post and VFX. In typical fashion, I made things a little bit more difficult for myself than I needed by making the character dream about flying. But that's not the only VFX shot in this film. Obviously, there is no Aurora drug that makes you lucid dream that I'm aware of, so I had to design the branding for that. In the original version of the script, I actually wrote that the character sees the digital advert at a bus stop. I actually went as far as filming that scene and doing the VFX for that shot, and I think it looked pretty good. Until I noticed that you can see the reflection of the original advert behind me. I potentially could have spent some time working on it and doing some roto, and I decided that the best use of time was actually to film an alternative scene. This is the phone advert that you see in the final film. Another fun tidbit, I originally was going to show either one of my sister's clips or my friend Ailes's TikToks, but then I realized that that might look like those people could have been the character's ex, so I switched to a happy puppy that comes up before the advert. Shout out to Aaron, Emma, and Tucker. The pharmacy scene also had the most VFX shots of any scene. The logo for the box is seen here, here, and here. I actually was able to reuse the asset that I built for the original bus stop scene, so at least that time wasn't wasted. One other VFX shot that was my own doing was this scene right here. Did you see it? No? Good. Well, I accidentally filmed this shot with my wedding ring on, so that was amended in post. Finally, stepping into the air moment. This one was super fun, albeit confusing to figure out. So there's one shot since I wrote the script that I knew was going to be an issue, and that is the shot where I step off the building into the air. First option was to do it digitally. Well, obviously I'm not going to step off a building. The other option is to do something somewhat practically. So the two elements that are going to make that viable are this, which is our glass hearth, and a mirror. The idea is this: I'm going to support the glass hearth on both sides, suspended from the ground. That will allow me to walk on it and put the mirror underneath so the camera doesn't go directly underneath. In an ideal world, I'd put the camera directly underneath. So I'm going to put the mirror in underneath at a 45-degree angle, camera to the side, shoot into the mirror, up through the glass, and then step onto the glass like it's the air. So I'm essentially going to do a quick test run here in the house and see if we can make it work. So this is me attempting that. Oh, okay. Oh, that was way more nerve-wracking than it looked. We know it can support my weight, so that's half the battle. Now, I reckon between the cases, we should just be able to wedge the mirror in, and then we should be able to set up the camera and shoot through the mirror. Okay, so I just dropped my wife to work, and while I was in the car, I came up with an idea. The problem with this current setup, I'm trying to give myself the most vertical walking space, which is limiting my frame to be quite vertical. I can't go fully horizontal, because if I do, then I don't have a place to step off and step on to the glass. And then the second option is I'm going to move it at like a 45-degree angle to hopefully get that position a little bit better and see if that gives me the framing that I'm after. I really confused myself onto which side that I should walk off from, especially with the mirror and angles, so I filmed it several times, stepping out from each corner so that I could find the best option in the edit. That scene actually, in its entirety, was shot in 3 different locations. This one, on the rooftop bar of the local hotel. This one is the flat roof at our house. And this one is right outside on the floor. The sky did change throughout the day, but I didn't have the time for a full sky replacement. If you look closely, you can also see some of the reflections on the underside of the glass, but you don't notice it in the context of the shots. Last thing to note here is that the flying sequence was all stock footage. I know, technically I didn't film those shots, but to me it's just another tool used to tell the story. If you want to argue that I technically failed the challenge because of that, fair enough, but I think the story is better with those shots there. So I'll take failing on a technicality. Shout out to Artlist though, awesome shots. Speaking of Artlist, the music was also licensed from Artlist. It's a song called Atlas by Marshall Unzinger. I was able to use the stems to build the earlier part of the film and then the full song once the flying moments kicked in. Sound design was also a very important factor in building this world. I wanted the character to feel distant or muffled, like he wasn't really included in the conversation that was happening around him. All of the ambience and sound effects were taken from the free library from Soundly, as they have an integration with Final Cut Pro 10. The wallet in the coffee shop is actually people speaking, I believe, Norwegian, which is another fun fact. The whoosh that is used for the transition as the character was falling asleep was actually taken from the Triune Films Hits and Risers pack, but every other sound effect or ambience was sourced on Soundly. So that's it, how I achieved making a film entirely on my own. I'd like to thank those of you who have watched it and given me feedback and shared the film. Honestly, the initial feedback has been fantastic. Some compliments on the acting, surprisingly, but also the visuals and the story. A lot of people wanted to know about how I got so much camera motion when filming myself, so I hope this clarifies that for you. To me, the film worked. It told a good story in a compelling way, and I think the pacing felt good, and overall I'm really happy with the finished product. If I wasn't under the constraints of this challenge, I would have loved to have worked with an actor to really delve into the psychology of the character. I know I probably could have gotten a stronger performance and potentially added other layers to the character. I would have loved to have got the bus stop shot right. I think it's a cooler visual and adds more character depth, as to me, he probably wouldn't have been scrolling on his phone. Again, these are minor gripes from my end, but I don't take away from the pride that I have in completing this challenge. If you have any comments or feedback, constructive or otherwise, please let me know in the comments down below. Constructive criticism is the only way I'm going to be able to finish these 12 films and not fall into the standard traps of making films. So, what's the moral of this story? Don't let your constraints be your cage. If you have a camera and an idea, you have enough. Yeah, crew and collaborators make things a lot easier, but it shouldn't hold you back. Shoot test shots. Shoot a visual storyboard using action figures. Dial in your idea and help others get on the same page and build your crew that way. If you feel creative, be creative. Refine the story you want to tell. Get so hyped about it you can't help but get others excited too. Go make something. For me, I've 1 film down, 11 to go. January is over, but February's challenge is already in motion, and it's going to be a selection of good ideas. Drop a comment on what you think was the most interesting aspect of this BTS. I would love to know. If you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing to follow along the rest of this 12-month filmmaking journey. And cut.